I'm here with Stephanie Parker. She plays the role of Hannah. So just going to ask you a question about how do you feel about playing the role of Hannah?
Man, the role of Hannah to me is so many pieces of so many women that have lived in this world, in terms of a woman that chooses to pray for her family before it even comes to be, a woman who chooses to honor God in spite of the angry backlash from a rival wife in this situation, but it could be anyone, you know. And she decided that she had a choice. Is she going to take her heartbreak of not being able to have a child, the rejection from her husband's other wife, and take it to God, or take it away from him? And she chose to go to the Lord with it. And it was one of the biggest blessings in genealogical history, in terms of her prayer resulted in Samuel being born and becoming a judge, the final judge of Israel, before King Saul and King David took the throne as the first and second king of Israel. And Samuel, her son, was the one that anointed David, who is the most famous king of all history and was a foreshadowing of the Messiah, and who also, he was able to anoint David and said, a lot of people look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And that's such a full circle moment, because Hannah, God looked at her heart. God looked at her heart. She wasn't anyone of special reputation or lineage for the most part. She was a woman that chose to take her heartbreak to the Lord, and God blessed it and God honored it for generations.
And you're a mother too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you ever consider giving your own children, like Hannah did, to God?
I think we don't have that environment in which we do that now. And so, goodness, the bravery, the surrender, the ability to completely relinquish control and trust to the Lord was so incredible. And I think in some way we have to relinquish control to the Lord of our children, because there's always comes a point where we're like, these aren't ours, our kids, they're yours, Lord. And so just take with them and do with them what you would want for your glory and for your honor. And so, yeah, we may not maybe give our kids to a temple in order to, dedicate them to a temple for the rest of their lives. But in so many ways, as a mom, I personally have chosen to dedicate my kids to the Lord and say, God, let your will be done with them. I have lots of plans, and we women like to have lots of, organized purposes and plans and futures that we see for our kids. But at the end of the day, God has a much better one. And so we just have to surrender that to the Lord and trust that He's going to work out all things for good and for His glory with our kids.
That's a great answer. So the other issue with Hannah is the fact that Elkanah said he loved her. Mm-hmm. Loved Hannah. She's my first love.
Yeah.
And then he married another one.
Yep.
So the idea of having two, again, we're not living in that society either.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. You can only handle one.
Sister wife. Sorry.
But yet she still wanted to have a child with him.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think, especially in that culture, a woman's value was very much rooted in how many children you have, and she didn't have any. She didn't have any kids that she could walk through the streets while all these other moms had their 5, 10. They had a lot more kids back then, and they were considered to be like quivers or arrows in, what is the verse? You know what I'm talking about? Where they're arrows in the hand of an archer, essentially, and they value children so much. I think even more than we do today, and having them. And so it was heartbreaking for her to know that she couldn't provide this to her husband, the honor of having a son, having children to carry on the name and the family line, and instead he had to go with another woman who could. And the heartbreak of that, I can't even imagine what she must have lived through, knowing that she could not be what society expected of her, what she expected of herself, what she felt like her God-given purpose was. She couldn't be it. And so then learning how to surrender that to the Lord, man, she was a pretty awesome woman.
Do you have any advice to current Hannahs out there that maybe don't have children of their own?
Yeah.
Maybe might not have children of their own. They're dealing with infertility, or maybe they don't believe that they're a full woman.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for them?
You know, it was interesting when I reread the story of Hannah that it was saying that God closed her womb for a purpose. Man, that's a hard one to swallow as a woman, because I lost a baby, and I know, and also had to undergo a surgery that made me having another child less likely. And so just trusting God's timing, relinquishing control of your timeline, of the fact that you could have a baby or not, so hard. But what's so beautiful about the story of Hannah is, as painful as it was, God had a very huge, massive purpose for the waiting, and for the redemption on the other side of the waiting. And so, although it didn't seem to make sense to her at the time, I'm sure when she saw Samuel take over as the chief priest and saw him serving and honoring God with his whole heart, she's like, worth it, you know? So I think sometimes we don't have the privilege of seeing the perspective of time. And so we have to choose in this moment. I trust a God that's bigger than this moment. I trust a God that promises me, I've heard someone say, God doesn't give us a meal plan for the week, he gives us our daily bread. And so focusing on, God has given me this 24 hours, and right now I may not have a child, but what do you have for me, God? And living in what the purpose he has you in right now, and trusting him for the rest.
That's great. This was Stephanie Parker. She plays Hannah.
Thank you.